Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going up against like a really powerful enemy,
Yeah.
one that like keeps us from, reaching our full potential, whether it's, finally writing that novel or launching that business we always talk about,
Yeah.
or even, getting those six-pack abs. Have you ever felt like something's holding you back from achieving your goals,
Oh, yeah,
even when you're putting in the work?
for sure.
That's what we're tackling today.
That's sneaky force.
Yeah.
Stephen Pressfield calls it resistance in his book, Do the Work. And he lays out some really powerful strategies for how to conquer it.
I've always thought of resistance as just like being lazy or procrastinating.
Sure.
But Pressfield paints a much more vivid,
Yeah.
honestly a little scary picture.
He describes resistance as this almost sentient entity working against us,
Yeah.
using fear and self-doubt as its weapons. He even gives us a hit list of activities that trigger it most.
Okay.
Things like pursuing any creative calling, starting a business,
Yeah.
sticking to a diet,
Right.
even those six-pack abs you mentioned.
Like the more important the task is to our personal growth,
Yeah,
the more resistance digs in its heels.
absolutely.
So if it's this like invisible force,
Right.
how do we even begin to fight it?
Well, the first step is recognizing it.
Okay.
Think about what you consistently resist.
Yeah.
Is it writing, public speaking, starting that side hustle?
Right.
Pressfield argues that the things we resist the most
Yeah.
might actually point us towards our true calling.
So by paying attention to what we're avoiding,
Right.
we might actually uncover hidden passions.
You got it.
That's a real mind shift.
So like resistance is inadvertently giving us a roadmap,
Okay.
but it also has a whole arsenal of tactics to keep us stuck.
Yeah.
Procrastination is an obvious one. But Pressfield also calls out perfectionism as a major player.
Right.
That voice that says, it's not good enough yet.
Yeah.
Wait till it's perfect.
I know that voice well.
But perfect is just a myth, isn't it?
Yeah.
It never actually arrives.
And then we never actually start.
Exactly.
But Pressfield also warns about some surprising enemies in this battle.
Oh.
He says sometimes our closest friends in a family, the people who love us most,
Yeah.
can become agents of resistance.
Think about it.
Okay.
They often express concern,
Yeah.
wanting to protect us from failure or disappointment. Maybe they encourage us to take a safer path,
Right.
even if it means sacrificing our dreams.
Yeah.
It all comes from a good place,
I know.
but it can feed our self-doubt
Right.
and ultimately reinforce the resistance.
So how do we navigate that? It feels almost disloyal to push back against those who care about us.
It's not about pushing back,
Okay.
but about recognizing that their fears are not necessarily our own.
Okay.
It's about gently
Yeah.
but firmly asserting our own vision. And remember,
Yeah.
Pressfield also introduces some unexpected allies in this fight.
Okay.
This one is really counterintuitive.
Okay. I'm all ears.
Okay.
Who are these allies?
He advocates for the power of staying stupid. Now, hear me out before you think I'm encouraging you to throw out your brain.
Okay, staying stupid.
Right.
That's not your typical self-help advice.
No, it's not. It's about approaching our dreams with a certain level of naivete
Okay.
and even arrogance. Think about figures like Charles Lindbergh crossing the Atlantic solo,
Right.
or Steve Jobs revolutionizing technology.
Yeah.
They all went against conventional wisdom, ignored the naysayers,
Right.
and believed in their visions even when logic dictated otherwise.
So it's not about being literally unintelligent,
Yep.
but more about having that unwavering belief, that damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead kind of attitude.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's that blind faith
Yeah.
that helps us overcome the fear that resistance drives on.
Okay.
But there's a nuance here.
Right.
It's not about being reckless or ignoring all advice.
Okay.
It's about finding a balance,
Yeah.
doing your due diligence,
Right.
but also being willing to trust your gut and take a leap of faith. How do you see that playing out in your own life?
That's such a good question. I know there have been times when I've let fear paralyze me,
Yeah.
over-analyzing every possible outcome instead of just taking action.
Right.
What about you? Have you ever encountered this staying stupid principle in action?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a time when I considered switching careers. Everyone thought I was crazy to leave a stable job
Yeah.
for something so uncertain.
Right.
But that inner voice kept pushing me, saying, this is what you're meant to do.
Wow.
I had to tune out the logic,
Yeah.
embrace the uncertainty,
Right.
and just go for it.
Wow.
And you know what? It was terrifying,
Yeah.
but also one of the best decisions I ever made.
That's so inspiring.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've got to be wary of those well-meaning friends and family.
Right.
Cultivate a bit of healthy stupidity.
Yes.
And be prepared to battle resistance head on.
Uh-huh.
But when's the best time to launch this attack? Do we wait for the perfect moment?
Pressfield would say absolutely not.
Okay.
He's all about starting before you're ready. Waiting for the perfect conditions is just another form of resistance.
That makes sense. I've definitely been guilty of that.
Yeah.
Waiting for all the stars to align before I start a project.
Right.
But then I end up procrastinating and losing momentum.
Exactly. He argues that action itself breeds courage and momentum.
Okay.
He even challenges the idea of doing extensive research up front, suggesting that it can become another way to procrastinate.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot of wisdom there. Sometimes we get so caught up in gathering information that we never actually move forward.
Sure.
It's like we're trying to eliminate all risk,
Yeah.
but that's impossible.
Right.
And it just keeps us stuck.
He believes in getting a basic outline down first,
Wow.
capturing the essence of your idea. Imagine having an entire novel outlined on just one single sheet of paper.
Wow.
He argues that's all you need to get started.
Okay.
It's about focusing on the core concept
Right.
and then letting the creative process guide you.
That's a really powerful image.
Yeah.
A single sheet of paper containing the seed of an entire novel. It really underscores the importance of simplifying and focusing on the essentials.
It's about trusting that the details will emerge as you go.
Okay.
This reminds me of the lean startup approach, which encourages entrepreneurs to launch with a minimum viable product
Right.
and then iterate based on customer feedback.
It's like applying that principle to any creative endeavor.
Exactly.
So we've started before, we're ready, outlined our vision, and maybe even gotten a good chunk of the work done. We're feeling confident, maybe even a little proud of ourselves. And then, bam, we hit a wall. I think this is what Pressfield calls the belly of the beast, right?
He does. And he doesn't sugarcoat it. This is where the resistance is at its strongest.
Okay.
Self-doubt creeps in.
Yeah.
We experience setbacks.
That's great.
Maybe even a full-blown crash of our project. It can feel like everything is falling apart.
Right.
Have you ever been there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think anyone who has ever tried to create anything original has been in that dark place.
Right.
It's like this soul-crushing moment where you question everything.
Yeah.
Your talent, your vision, even your sanity.
And Pressfield says these crashes are inevitable, even beneficial.
Okay.
They force us to confront our weaknesses, reassess our approach, and ultimately grow.
Right.
It's in these moments that we discover what we're truly made of. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a really empowering perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of viewing setbacks as failures,
Right.
we can see them as opportunities to learn, to course correct,
Yeah.
and to build resilience.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's not a sign to give up,
Right.
but rather a challenge to dig deeper and push through.
Okay.
But how do we do that?
Right.
It can feel so daunting when we're in the thick of it.
I think that's where Pressfield's concept of assistance comes in. It sounds almost spiritual, right?
It is.
Yeah.
He argues that when we pour our love and passion into our work,
Yeah.
when we truly surrender to the creative process,
Right.
we attract a positive energy. He calls it assistance,
Okay.
and he believes it can help us overcome the most challenging obstacles.
It's almost like tapping into a universal creative force.
Yeah.
A source of inspiration and guidance
Right.
that can counter the negativity of resistance.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very hopeful idea
Right.
that we're not alone in this struggle, that there's something larger supporting us
Yeah.
if we're willing to open ourselves to it.
Okay.
But that leads us to another challenge, finishing.
Right.
Pressfield places a lot of emphasis
Yeah.
on actually completing the project, getting it out into the world.
Okay.
Why is that so crucial?
It's about more than just checking a task off our to-do list.
Right.
It's about overcoming that final hurdle of resistance,
Uh-huh.
that fear of judgment and failure
Yeah.
that keeps so many of us from sharing our work.
He calls it shipping,
Okay.
and he compares it to a Navy SEAL training ritual where candidates can ring a bell to quit.
Wow.
Will we ring the bell?
Yeah.
Or will we push through to the finish line?
That's such a vivid image.
Yeah.
It really highlights the mental toughness required to ship our work.
Absolutely.
But why is it so hard to do? What are we so afraid of?
I think we're afraid of a lot of things.
Okay.
Rejection, criticism,
Yeah.
even success. Pressfield argues that sometimes we sabotage ourselves when we're close to achieving our goals because we're afraid of what success might bring, more responsibility, higher expectations, the pressure to live up to our own potential.
I think that resonates with a lot of people. It's easier to stay small, to stay safe, than to step into the unknown.
He's challenging us to confront that fear. To embrace the challenge of success. And to understand that it's often in the face of those fears that we truly grow. But it's not just about finishing. It's about finishing strong. Overcoming those final doubts. And releasing our work into the world with confidence and courage. What advice does he offer for those facing those final moments of resistance?
He reminds us that we've already come so far. That we've faced down challenges and proven our resilience. It's about tapping back into that stupidity, that unwavering belief in our vision that allowed us to start in the first place.
And he emphasizes the importance of remembering our why. Why are we doing this? Is it for external validation? Or for something deeper, something that resonates with our core values and aspirations.
That's such a crucial point. When we're facing those final moments of doubt, remembering our why can provide the clarity and motivation we need to push through.
Absolutely.
It's about aligning our actions with our deeper purpose.
He also reminds us that shipping is not about achieving perfection, but about progress. It's about getting our work out into the world, even if it's not flawless, so that it can make an impact, generate feedback, and continue to evolve.
It's about embracing the iterative nature of creation, understanding that our work is never truly finished, but rather in a constant state of evolution.
Exactly. And finally, he encourages us to celebrate our accomplishments, to acknowledge the courage and effort it took to get to this point. Finishing is a victory. Regardless of the outcome. And we deserve to savor that moment.
That's such an important reminder. Especially in a culture that often glorifies the hustle. And never encourages us to pause and appreciate what we've achieved. But what happens after we shit? Is that the end of the battle with resistance?
Not quite. Pressfield warns us that resistance is a shapeshifter. It'll find new ways to challenge us. But by that point, we've leveled up. We've learned its tricks, we've tasted victory. But before we get to shipping, Pressfield offers some really concrete tools for structuring our work.
I'm all about practical strategies. Pressfield is all about intuition and staying stupid. But he also seems to be a big believer in having a framework. What does he suggest?
He introduces the 3-act structure, a classic storytelling technique. But he argues that it can be applied to any creative project, whether it's a novel, a business plan, a piece of music, even major life changes.
So it's like breaking down your project into a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Exactly.
Just like a movie or even a good joke.
And he gives some really fascinating examples. He talks about how even a masterpiece like Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper can be understood in terms of 3 acts.
So we're talking about the supper table itself, then Jesus and the apostles, and finally the perspective and the background. I never thought of it that way. But it makes sense.
It does.
He also uses a musical example, right?
Yes. Bob Dylan's Positively 4th Street. He breaks it down into 3 acts based on the lyrics, showing how even a 3-minute song benefits from this structure. It's all about finding those turning points that define the arc of the story.
That's so cool. I love how he uses the Vietnam Memorial as an example, too.
The
wall with all the names. The V shape that descends below ground level, and then the way visitors interact with it. It all comes together to create this incredibly powerful experience.
And it's not just about high art or historical monuments. He brings it into the modern world. With examples like Facebook and Twitter, showing how even those digital platforms can be analyzed through the lens of three-act structure.
It's about understanding that any project, no matter how complex or innovative, can benefit from this basic framework.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we've got our three-act structure outlined on that single sheet of paper Pressfield talks about. What's next?
Pressfield is a big proponent of working backward. Figure out where you want to end up.
Okay.
And then reverse engineer the steps to get there.
So start with the destination in mind.
Yes.
It makes sense when you think about planning a trip.
Right.
You don't just hop in the car and start driving.
Yeah.
You have to know where you're going first.
Exactly.
Okay.
It applies to any creative project, writing a movie.
Yeah.
Start with the climax.
Right.
Opening a restaurant. Imagine the ideal dining experience.
Okay.
Want to make a major life change.
Yeah.
Envision the person you want to become.
Right.
It's about getting crystal clear on your destination.
I love that idea of working backward.
Yeah.
It feels almost counterintuitive, but so logical at the same time. But I can imagine some listeners thinking, wait, how do I even know where I want to go?
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
Pressfield encourages us to answer a crucial question. What is this about?
Okay.
It's about defining the theme.
Right.
The core idea. The beating heart of your project.
Right.
Think about iconic structures like the Eiffel Tower or a masterpiece like Duchamp's nude descending a staircase.
Okay.
What's the essence that transcends the physical form?
It's about tapping into the soul of the project.
Yes.
Once you understand that the how becomes much clearer. I remember Pressfield takes us through an exercise of outlining Moby Dick by working backward from the theme.
Yes. He identifies the core conflict.
Okay.
The clash between human will and the elemental forces of nature. And uses that to illuminate the structure of the story.
Okay.
It's brilliant.
He shows how the ending with Ishmael as the lone survivor who tells the tale is determined by that theme. And then he fills in the rest, the beginning and middle, with the elements necessary to set up that climax.
It's a masterclass in story structure.
Okay.
But it also highlights how crucial it is to identify the why behind any creative endeavor.
Right.
Without that clear sense of purpose, we're just drifting.
Yeah.
And that's when resistance really takes hold.
So we've worked backward, defined our theme, and got a solid outline of our three-act structure. Okay. Now it's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work.
That's where the real fun begins.
Okay.
Pressfield calls this filling in the gaps, adding the details, the scenes, the moments that will bring your project to life.
Okay.
He suggests aiming for 7 or 8 major sequences within the overall structure.
So it's like creating a roadmap for your journey. And this applies to more than just novels and movies, right? Whether you're designing a video game, developing a new product, or even planning a major event, this principle holds true. Yeah. It's about breaking down a seemingly overwhelming task into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Exactly.
Speaking of gathering information, I think this is where research can come in handy. But Pressfield has some strong opinions about how and when to do research, right?
He's very clear about this.
Okay.
Don't let research become a form of resistance.
Okay.
Do it strategically at the beginning or later in the process.
Okay.
But never during your prime creative time.
It's about recognizing that research can be a seductive form of procrastination. We feel like we're being productive, but really we're just avoiding the hard work of creating.
Exactly.
I love that analogy he uses from his advertising days about pitching ideas the size of a postage stamp when his boss wanted something big.
It's a reminder to think big, to swing for the fences.
Okay.
We can always refine and scale back later. But if we start small, we might limit our own potential.
It's about embracing that go big or go home mentality. But at some point, we have to move from brainstorming to actually creating something tangible. We have to face that scary moment of creating a first draft.
Pressfield doesn't mince words here.
Okay.
He says, get to the end, as if the devil himself were breathing down your neck and poking you in the butt with his pitchfork.
Okay. That's a pretty vivid image.
Yeah.
But I get the message. He's saying we need to be relentless,
right,
almost ruthless in our pursuit of that first draft.
Exactly.
But what about self-doubt? What about that inner critic that's always whispering in our ear, telling us we're not good enough?
That's when Pressfield's mantra of suspend all self-judgment comes into play.
Oh, okay.
The inner critic is resistance's best friend.
Yeah.
It's the voice of perfectionism and fear. And we have to silence it.
It's about giving ourselves permission to create freely, even messily, without second-guessing ourselves. It's about trusting the process. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. He compares it to childbirth. A messy, chaotic, but ultimately beautiful process.
Right.
It's about embracing that chaos, staying primitive, and not letting our need for control stifle the creative flow.
He tells that great story about his friend Paul, who was writing a really dark and disturbing cop novel. Paul was worried that it was too much, but Pressfield told him to lean into it.
Yeah.
The darker, the better.
Because the darker it got, the more authentic and powerful it became. It's a great reminder to trust those unconventional impulses.
Okay.
Those ideas that might scare us a little.
Yeah.
They often hold the most potential for originality and impact.
Okay. So we're suspending self-judgment, staying primitive, and pushing through to that first draft.
Okay.
But what happens when we get stuck? What if the ideas just aren't flowing?
Pressfield acknowledges that this happens to everyone.
Right.
He says that ideas don't always arrive linearly.
Okay.
They can show up out of order, in fragments at the
Yeah.
most unexpected times.
Yeah.
It's like they have a mind of their own.
It's like that moment when you're struggling with a problem and then the solution hits you while you're in the shower or taking a walk.
Exactly. He emphasizes the importance of always being ready to capture those fleeting ideas, even if they seem random or incomplete.
It's about having that notebook and pen handy at all times, or using the voice memo app on your phone.
Right.
We've got to respect the non-linear nature of creativity.
It's about being open to those unexpected bursts of insight, knowing that they can come from anywhere at any time.
So we're diligently capturing those ideas. Now we have to figure out how to refine them to shape them into something coherent.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Pressfield talks about alternating between action and reflection. He says we should never do both at the same time.
So it's about setting aside dedicated time for each.
Right.
First, we focus on just getting the ideas out, letting them flow freely without judgment. And then we step back, analyze what we've created, and start to see how the pieces fit together.
Exactly. He says, in the early stages, go for bulk, not precision.
Okay.
It's like hoisting the sail and trusting that the wind will appear.
It's about surrendering to the creative flow.
Yeah.
Having faith that the ideas will come if we create the space for them. And that's where staying stupid comes in again.
Absolutely. It's about letting go of our need to control everything.
Yeah.
And embracing a sense of playfulness, of exploration, of not knowing all the answers up front.
He emphasizes that our ideas are often smarter than we are. It's like they have a life of their own, and our job is to help them find their way into the world.
He talks about how Bob Dylan will go to extraordinary lengths to find the right song, the right arrangement, the right producing partner, all guided by instinct and intuition.
Okay.
It's a reminder that the creative process is often a journey of discovery. Not a linear path to a predetermined destination.
So it's about saying yes to those unexpected ideas, those moments of inspiration that might seem crazy or unconventional, because those are often the seeds of breakthrough work.
He even goes so far as to say the answer is always yes. It's about trusting our gut, those intuitive nudges, and not letting fear talk us out of exploring uncharted territory.
Okay, we're alternating between action and reflection, staying stupid, saying yes to those unconventional ideas.
Right.
But how do we ensure that all those disparate ideas and fragments come together to form a cohesive whole?
Pressfield encourages us to regularly check in with ourselves, to ask, what is this damn thing about? He suggests having a meeting with ourselves at least twice a week, where we step back from the day-to-day work and reconnect with the core theme of the project.
It's like making sure that every element we add, every scene we write, every decision we make is in service of that central idea.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that quote by Patty Chayefsky, who said, "As soon as I figure out the theme of my play, I write it down on a thin strip of paper and scotch tape it to the front of my typewriter. After that, nothing goes into that play that isn't on theme."
It's a powerful image.
Yeah.
And a great reminder to stay focused on the essence of our work.
Okay.
But he also encourages us to ask ourselves, what's missing?
So it's not just about staying true to the theme, but also about identifying any gaps or weaknesses in the project.
Exactly.
It's about being willing to step back and honestly assess our work. I love that story he tells about Robert De Niro's insistence on adding a seemingly insignificant scene to the movie True Confessions.
It's the scene where De Niro's character, Monsignor, returns to his Spartan dormitory room after a long day. There's no dialogue. Just De Niro walking into the room, taking off his hat, and sitting down.
De Niro felt that something was missing, that the audience needed to see that contrast between the Monsignor's public persona and his private life. And that one simple scene without a single word spoken adds so much depth to the character.
It's a great reminder that sometimes the most impactful moments are the ones we might overlook. The ones that reveal something essential about the human condition.
But what happens when, despite all our best efforts, the project starts to go off the rails? What if we hit a wall, face a major setback, or even experience a complete meltdown of everything we've been working on? Pressfield calls this the big crash.
He does. And he says it's something that happens to everyone at some point. It's that feeling of hitting a wall, losing confidence, questioning everything. Maybe a star rodeo bull runs away with a heifer, or a bank pulls funding for your business venture. It can feel like the world is falling apart.
It's that moment when everything seems to be going wrong and we're left feeling completely demoralized and lost.
And he stresses that these crashes are often unpredictable and unavoidable. They stem from mistakes or oversights we made early on without even realizing it. So it's not about blaming ourselves, but rather about recognizing it as a natural part of the creative process.
He actually suggests that crashes can be good for us.
He does. Because they force us to confront our weaknesses, to reevaluate our approach, and ultimately to learn from our mistakes. It's like trial by fire. A test of our resilience and commitment.
He compares it to Navy SEAL training. Where candidates are pushed to their absolute limits. Both physically and mentally. They have the option to ring a bell if they want to quit, to give up.
It's a powerful metaphor for the temptation we all face when things get tough. But Pressfield reminds us that the creative journey is often even harder than SEAL training because we're doing it alone without the external support and structure of a military program.
We have to find that inner strength to keep going, even when it feels like we're wading through mud.
But he reassures us that panic is good, that it's a sign that we're pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zone, that we're venturing into uncharted territory. He even compares it to a child taking those first tentative steps away from their mother.
There's that initial burst of confidence, followed by a sudden realization of vulnerability, and then that instinctive rush back to safety. But each time the child ventures out, they go a little further, gaining confidence and independence.
It's a beautiful analogy for the creative process. We push ourselves. We stumble. We retreat. But each time we get back up, we're stronger and more resilient.
Okay, so we've crashed, we've panicked, but we're determined to get back on track. What does Pressfield advise us to do next?
He says we need to go back to square one to revisit our initial concept and figure out where we went wrong. It's about detaching from the emotional turmoil of the crash.
Okay.
And approaching the problem with a sense of objectivity.
It's about remembering that the problem is the problem, not us.
Exactly.
It's not a reflection of our worth or our ability. It's just a challenge to be overcome, an opportunity to learn and grow.
He shares a story.
Yeah.
About his own experience with this. Yeah. He was working on his book, The Profession. And after he showed it to some trusted readers, they hated it.
It must have been devastating to receive that kind of feedback after putting so much work into it.
It was.
Yeah.
But it forced him to step back and analyze the problem. He realized there was a fundamental flaw in the concept, and he needed to make a major adjustment.
So he had to be willing to let go of his precious idea and start over.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of courage.
It does.
What was the flaw?
He realized he needed to move the story further into the future to create a greater sense of distance from current events.
Right.
It was a difficult decision, but ultimately it saved the book.
Wow.
It's a great example of how a seemingly small change can have a huge impact.
It's a reminder that sometimes we need to be willing to kill our darlings.
Right.
To let go of those ideas that aren't serving the project, even if it's painful. He also does a really interesting thought experiment with Moby Dick, right?
He does. He imagines that Moby Dick had crashed.
Right.
And then he walks us through the process of rescuing it.
Okay.
He identifies the weaknesses in the story and comes up with creative solutions.
Right.
For example, he focuses on the character of Ahab, suggesting that he needs to be more monstrous, more obsessed. He even suggests giving Ahab a peg leg made of whale ivory.
It's amazing how he can take something as iconic as Moby Dick and deconstruct it, showing us the inner workings of the story. It's like getting a glimpse into the mind of a master storyteller. But beyond the specific techniques, I think the real lesson here is that rewriting is an essential part of the creative process.
Absolutely.
And even the greatest writers have to go through multiple drafts. Right.
To refine their work.
Exactly. It's not about getting it perfect on the first try, but about being willing to experiment. To iterate. To keep refining until we arrive at something that truly resonates.
Okay. So we've crashed. We've gone back to square one. We've worked the problem. And hopefully we've emerged from that dark place with a renewed sense of purpose and a stronger vision. Now we're ready to face the final boss, shipping. This feels like the climax of a movie. The hero facing like the ultimate showdown. But this time the enemy isn't like a fire-breathing dragon. It's our own fear.
Pressfield calls shipping the critical part of any project. Because if we don't if we don't put our work out into the world, then everything we've done up to this point has been for nothing. It's like training for a marathon and then deciding not to run the race. But why is shipping so terrifying for so many of us? Is it just about the fear of judgment?
It's more than that.
Okay.
It's about vulnerability, about exposing ourselves to the possibility of rejection and criticism. It's about putting our heart and soul out there for the world to see. And that can feel incredibly risky.
Pressfield doesn't sugarcoat it either.
No, he doesn't.
He says shipping takes a killer instinct. That sounds intense. What does he mean by that?
He's talking about that inner drive. That willingness to overcome our fears and put ourselves out there. It's about having the courage to say, here's my work, take it or leave it.
He also reminds us that shipping is not just about sending our work out into the world, but about slaying the dragon of resistance once and for all.
He quotes Marianne Williamson, who famously wrote, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure."
That really hits home. It's like we sabotage ourselves because we're afraid of what might happen if we actually succeed.
Pressfield is urging us to face those fears head on and ship our work anyway. Because in doing so, we break free from the limitations that resistance imposes on us.
He also talks about how shipping is a marker of professionalism.
He does. He shares a story about how he finally finished his first novel after 17 years of struggle.
Wow.
He was excited. But then those doubts started to creep in. He started to feel like a fraud. His friend Tony Keppelman challenged him, saying, "Be happy. You're where you wanted to be, aren't you? So you're taking a few blows.
Yeah.
That's the price for being in the arena and not on the sidelines.
Right.
Stop complaining and be grateful."
It's like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
We move from amateur to professional by facing those fears and pushing through them.
He uses the mountaineering term exposure to describe this feeling.
Okay.
A climber is exposed
Right.
when there's nothing but thin air beneath them.
Yeah.
And when we ship our work, we're exposed in the same way.
Right.
We're vulnerable to judgment,
Yeah.
to failure, to the unknown.
But that vulnerability is also what makes us feel truly alive. It's what allows us to connect with others on a deeper level.
He also shares a story
Okay.
about his experience working on the movie King Kong Lives. He thought it was going to be a huge hit, but it bombed. The critics hated it.
Wow.
But even in that moment of failure, he learned a valuable lesson.
What was that?
He realized that he had shipped his work.
Oh, okay.
He put himself out there and survived. And that realization gave him the strength to keep going.
Wow.
It's a reminder that even if our work fails, we'll have gained invaluable experience.
Right.
We'll have faced our fears, overcome resistance, and shipped our work.
That's a powerful perspective. It's like the act of shipping itself is a victory, regardless of the outcome.
Exactly. And it's about remembering that shipping is not about achieving perfection, but about progress.
Okay.
It's about getting our work out into the world so it can have a life of its own.
Right.
Connect with others, and continue to evolve.
Okay, so we finally shipped. We faced our fears.
Yeah.
We've put our work out there.
Right.
We've celebrated our accomplishments.
Okay.
Now what? Is the battle with resistance finally over?
Not quite. Pressfield warns us that resistance is a shapeshifter. It will find new ways to challenge us.
Right.
But he also reminds us that we're stronger now. We've been through the fire, and we've learned how to fight back.
It's like leveling up in a video game. Exactly.
We've gained experience, we've acquired new skills, and we're ready to face whatever challenges come next.
He encourages us to see shipping as the beginning of a new phase, not the end of the journey.
Right.
Because once our work is out in the world, we'll face new challenges.
Right.
Feedback, criticism, the pressure to maintain momentum, and the need to keep evolving.
Yeah.
But these challenges are all part of the creative process.
Right.
They're opportunities to learn, to grow, and to refine our craft.
It's about embracing the ongoing nature of the creative journey, understanding that it's not a linear path to a final destination, but a constant cycle of creation, refinement, and evolution.
And he leaves us with one final piece of advice.
Okay.
Keep going. Stay stupid. Trust the soup.
Okay.
And start before you're ready. Those are words to live by. It's a reminder that the creative process is a gift, a privilege to bring our ideas into the world. And it's a journey that's worth taking, no matter how challenging it might be.
You know, as we've been unpacking all these ideas about overcoming resistance and creative work, it strikes me that these principles apply to so many areas of life.
That's so true. It's not just about writing a novel or launching a business.
Right.
It's about anything that requires us to step outside our comfort zone, to grow, to evolve.
Exactly. Think about relationships, for example. How often do we hold back from expressing our true feelings or taking a chance on love because of fear or self-doubt? That's resistance at work. Keeping us from experiencing the fullness of human connection.
And it's the same with our physical health.
Right.
We resist starting that exercise routine. We make excuses for not eating healthier.
Right.
We put off going to the doctor. Resistance whispers in our ear.
Right.
It's too hard. You're not good enough. You'll fail anyway.
And it can even show up in our spiritual lives. We resist exploring our beliefs, questioning our assumptions, seeking a deeper connection to something greater than ourselves. We get stuck in our routines and comfort zones, afraid to challenge our worldview or confront uncomfortable truths.
But Pressfield's insights offer a powerful antidote to that stagnation.
Right.
He encourages us to be curious, to question, to explore, and to embrace the unknown.
It's about recognizing that resistance isn't just an external force, but an internal one.
Okay.
It's that voice of self-doubt,
Yeah.
that fear of failure, that tendency to settle for less than we're capable of.
Pressfield reminds us that we have the power to overcome that internal resistance.
Yeah.
We can tap into our inner strength and resilience, and we can create a life that's truly aligned with our deepest values and aspirations.
So, to our listeners, we invite you to consider this.
Okay.
Where is resistance showing up in your life? What are you holding yourself back from? What dreams are you neglecting?
Yeah.
What potential are you leaving untapped?
We challenge you to apply Pressfield's principles to those areas of your life. Start before you're ready. Embrace a sense of stupidity. Trust the creative process. And ship your work, even if it's imperfect.
The journey of overcoming resistance is not about achieving perfection. It's about progress, growth, and the ongoing pursuit of your full potential.
And it's a journey that's worth taking, even if it's challenging, because the rewards are immeasurable. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into overcoming resistance.
It's been great.
Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your own potential and never let resistance win.